There are places where what normally remains hidden becomes visible. Magical underwater realms in which fish and birds have developed very special hunting techniques. The creatures live here in an element that has become rare. Clean groundwater. But what is this treasure that so few of us know about? Where can we find this precious resource that supports and links together the most diverse habitats? Hidden in the Upper Rhine Valley, between the Black Forest and the Vosges, is a place you wouldn't expect on this plateau. A spring in the middle of the valley. It feeds a small pond. Its water is a constant 11 degrees Celsius. On cool days, it steams, just like a heated jacuzzi. Thunder holes is what local people call these rare springs, because they look as though thunderbolts have punched holes in the ground. Here, what we normally never see gushes towards the light, groundwater. It positively bubbles out of the earth. In late winter, the warm water attracts bathers. A northern pike luxuriates in the cozy spring water like a guest in a wellness spa. The groundwater has only limited oxygen, so the trout is a little short of breath. It's especially in spring that the male pike gather in the warm pool. They bear scars, signs of battles fought. Gradually, more and more pike arrive. She is the object of their desire, a large female pike. Her abdomen is bulging with eggs. Mating time turns the predators into tender cavaliers. For weeks, the suitors don't let the female out of their sight. They don't want to miss the decisive moment. More and more pike pursue the female. They perform a unique underwater dance. Every gigolo tries to get closest to her. With a whip of her tail, the female releases hundreds of tiny eggs, to which the males add their sperm. It's a love dance which leaves the question of paternity open. The most persistent admirers follow the female until the very last eggs have been expelled. thereby begetting more progeny than the other suitors. This Pike paradise doesn't lie in untouched countryside, but in the Upper Rhine Valley. Why is it here, in the middle of the plateau, that the groundwater comes to the surface? The Upper Rhine Valley is like a huge basin surrounded by mountains, which were pushed up 50 million years ago. The Black Forest to the east, and the Vosges in the west. It's in the mountains that the water bubbling out in the plain begins its journey. Up here, it's colder than in the valley. Clouds form and get caught in the hills. Rainwater collects in many small streams. The water is crystal clear and still free of pollutants. It's so clear that, with a bit of luck, a very rare creature may be spotted. The stone crayfish survives only in remote streams, far away from roads or pollution. This feathered swimmer also needs clear, fast-flowing rivulets. The white-throated dipper raises its ravenous young by the mountain stream. It's the only songbird in the world that can dive. It catches insect larvae underwater for its young. It dives scores of times. The fledglings keep her busy around the clock. This dipper has perfected its hunting technique. It's caught a caddisfly larva, not to eat, but to use as bait. A fish has fallen for the ruse. It has the larva in its mouth. But it and the larva end up as bird food. This hunting technique has never before been observed in a white-throated dipper. Also in pursuit of insect larvae are small fish like the common minnow. They, in turn, are pursued by young trout. Minnows are on their menu. But as long as the trout aren't hungry, the small fish are safe. The mountain stream flows on down towards the valley. The streams join together into rivulets, which finally empty into the Rhine. But some of the water takes a completely different route. One which remains hidden from animals and humans alike. The rainwater seeps into cracks and crevices. It meets with impermeable rock and flows underground into the Upper Rhine Valley. There it joins up with still more groundwater, which comes from the Alps, to form Europe's largest groundwater reservoir. It extends across the whole valley like an invisible river. At some places in the valley, the groundwater appears again. Where the soil is loose, it takes the path of least resistance to the surface. Creating ponds, like this thunder hole. It's not just the pike who appreciate the constantly warm groundwater. Sticklebacks breed directly next to the underwater springs. It's the male that takes care of the brood. It fans fresh water and therefore oxygen over the eggs. And keeps uninvited guests away from the breeding ground. What looks like a twig is a caddisfly larva in its armor plating made of plant remains. A genuine specialist thrives in the thunder hole, the fen pondweed. It feels at home here because the spring contains very few nutrients, like nitrates and phosphates. Where the water is not so pure, the pondweed is displaced by algae and other plants. Sometimes a koipu will visit the waters. These large rodents originally came from South America, until some of them escaped from fur farms in Europe. Since then, they've been proliferating rapidly along the Rhine. Koipus are herbivores, and they feed mainly in the fields bordering the rivers. The threat for the groundwater comes not from the koipus, but from further up. The problem comes when the rain turns into a cloudburst. Some days the rainfall is as much as otherwise in a whole month. This causes flooding in the meadows. At the same time, the groundwater rises, so more and more water flows in. That's fine for white storks and other birds. As the meadows flood, mice and worms provide easy prey. But the floodwater spreads further and further. And finally reaches the river, full of groundwater. From the surrounding fields, the floodwater brings something that threatens the groundwater habitat. Nutrients that can cause algae to spread rapidly and cloud the river. But sometimes there's a blessing in disguise. In spring, the floodwater is warmer than the groundwater, so the two don't mix. They form two layers, as in a latte macchiato. Good news for the pike. Where the two layers meet, they can find insects and fish. The murky floodwater does not spread down to the riverbed, so this time the creatures that live here are spared. The cloudy water makes everything dark below, which wakes up a nocturnal eel. Soon the floodwater recedes and the spell is broken. But the flood has left something behind in the spring river. A European chub. The fish was washed into the thunderhole. Not a good place for a chub. The pike are just waiting for a meal. The small fish keeps very still, otherwise its fate would be sealed. The highly sensitive sensory cells on the head and flanks of the predator detect even the smallest movement in the water. Can the chub remain undiscovered? The danger seems to have passed, but the chub does not know the pike's hunting technique. He's lurking, concealed, until the prey swims right under his nose. A narrow escape. But in the end, the perseverance and the huge mouth of the hunter win out. If a fish swims in front of a pike's mouth, a reflex reaction snaps it shut. The predator prefers to swallow its scaly prey head first. Without the constant flow of groundwater, there'd be no thunderhole here, and no pike. The groundwater has created a wild habitat that's species-rich. In the immediate neighborhood, though, it's man that determines what grows and what doesn't. The spring is surrounded by fields. The more intensely they're farmed, the greater the threat to the groundwater. The farmers spray their fields with weed killers and insecticides. These seep down into the groundwater and pollute the underground current. This is not only harmful for wild plants and animals, it's also a threat to the drinking water that's pumped into tall water towers. Excessive fertilizing, whether with mineral fertilizers or manure, is also harmful to the groundwater. Whatever gets into the groundwater reappears somewhere else. The nutrients contained in fertilizers pollute the delicate wetlands. The result is that algae overrun everything else. Fertilizer residues are becoming an ever greater problem for nature and drinking water worldwide. This also applies to the Upper Rhine Valley, where hardly any land remains unused. A few wetland areas survive simply because of the groundwater. It forces its way out of the ground in hollows making the land too soggy for cultivation. Lakes and reed beds are formed. Wetlands, like these marshy areas, are a paradise for waterfowl. Great cormorants have chosen one of the few trees in the marsh as their common roost. Here they're safe from enemies. The marsh provides ample food for all, for the spotted redshank chasing sticklebacks, and for the great egret. The cormorant has set itself quite a task. Has it overreached itself? It's all just a question of technique. A wild boar sow is rearing her young on a small island in the marsh, a safe home for the offspring. But to find food, the family must also leave its haven sometimes. Wild boars are amazingly good swimmers. Otherwise, they couldn't be island residents. The marsh also acts as a nursery for white storks. In the surrounding fields, they find frogs, worms, and mice for their brood. The marshy meadows are also an El Dorado for flowers and insects. Now, though, wetlands like these have become extremely rare. In the Upper Rhine Valley, too. Butterflies, grasshoppers, and spiders only breed in meadows that are not intensively cultivated and only mown in the season. Then even very rare flowers can flourish, like wild gladioli. In the protection of the plants, the Eurasian curlew nests in the wet meadows. In 2017, the year of the last count, there were only a handful of breeding pairs left in the Upper Rhine Valley. From year to year, there are fewer and fewer fledglings looking for food. These may be the last shots of young curlews in this region. When night falls on the marsh, other animals make themselves heard. Dusk is the starting signal for countless thousands of eager voices. Together they launch into a many-voiced concert of chirping and croaking. Amphibians are particularly active on rainy nights. Common frogs and European tree frogs go looking for partners. Yellow-bellied toads or edible frogs. All of them try to attract a partner with their croaking. But sometimes a deadly enemy comes along instead. For grass snakes, frogs are at the top of the menu. They scent their prey with their tongues. It's tough on the frog that the snake can dislocate its jaw. So it can eat prey that's quite a bit bigger than it is itself. The frogs, lucky enough to escape, will live to croak another day. The marshland is a small oasis in the Upper Rhine Valley, created by the groundwater, which links perfect habitats like wet meadows, pools and rivulets, and keeps them alive. If the earth were transparent, a vast groundwater reservoir would be visible. Far mightier than the Rhine, the underground river flows slowly to the north. It's a treasure that humans help themselves to. Farmers grow maize in huge monocultures. The maize flourishes splendidly in the sun-drenched Upper Rhine Valley, especially when it's watered. Some of the sprinklers are kept running even during the hottest hours of the midday sun. What the plants don't take up evaporates in the summer sun, which takes its toll. The groundwater can sink by up to 2 centimeters a day in July. Streams fed by the groundwater dry out. This spells doom for plants, fish, and invertebrates. This summertime wave of death can only be avoided if the farmers of the Upper Rhine Valley use the groundwater more sparingly. People have left their mark on the plateau between the Vosges and the Black Forest. Even right next to the Rhine, they have radically altered the landscape. When heavy machines are used to tear up the land, they strike right into the underground river. Every new hole immediately fills up with groundwater. Sand and gravel are sought-after building materials. They're extracted on a large scale in the Upper Rhine Valley. But what starts out as an act of destruction can become a second chance for nature. Along the Rhine, new artificial wetlands are being created, flooded gravel pits. After years of extraction, the pits are exhausted. Nature quickly gains a foothold again in the shallow shore areas. The groundwater river also flows through the gravel pit, breathing life into it. Plants and animals grow and swim literally in the middle of the groundwater. A dead leaf on its way down into the deeps, into a shady, bizarre world. The artificial light illuminates places to which sunlight hardly penetrates. 30 meters below the surface, there are hardly any plants anymore. Freshwater sponges, which look like colored stones, filter suspended particles out of the water. Sometimes they serve as cozy places to sleep. Bryozoa, tiny moss animals, cover a sunken bush. With their cilia fronds, they swirl minuscule particles into their mouths. Snails graze algae from the stones, and in turn whet the appetite of the crayfish, which always carries its cutlery with it. That's practical if you have to extract your meal from a hard shell. At a depth of 50 meters, creatures wait for everything that sinks down here. The decomposers. They include lake fly larvae and flatworms. They feed on dead plants and animals. Sludge worms form strange circles. During digestion, the decomposers exhaust the oxygen dissolved in the water. Freshwater sponges then die and are eaten by amphipods. If the oxygen is completely used up, the water releases iron compounds which stain the ground orange. White bacterial lawns also grow here, natural spectacles which can only be seen for a few weeks in the year. If oxygen-rich water arrives in the depths again, crustaceans and fish return. The dark underwater world is open to them once more, and they're off hunting for food. Like pioneers on an alien planet. In the shallower areas of the gravel pit, hunger drives a feathered underwater hunter. A young great crested grebe is off on one of its first hunting ventures. The lake is teeming with fish. But the fish are too agile for him. So the grebe dives even deeper, driven by hunger, into the plants. But he finds nothing. And then there's the question of breathing. The predator has to surface again after a minute at the latest, with no prey for his efforts. Then he notices that one of his relatives is more successful. The competitor is soon driven off, and the hunt resumes. Finally, the tactic pays off. A fish hiding among the plants is caught in a lethal trap. This has never been observed before. Great crested grebes swallowing their prey underwater and carrying on with the hunt as long as their breath lasts. Up to 3 fish per dive disappear in the grebe's beak. Abandoned gravel pits filled with water can replace, to some extent, what people have destroyed. The river that gave the Upper Rhine Valley its name is no longer a wild, natural river. It's been converted into a shipping canal. Its course has been straightened and its banks fortified. Below the surface, the Rhine is a bit of an underwater wasteland. Hardly any plants and only a few species of fish. Long tactile organs and a huge mouth make the Wells catfish a perfect predator in murky waters. What remains a mystery is why these giant fish, up to 2.5 meters in length, regularly collect in large groups, and always in the same place. The catfish don't gather for mating or for hunting together. Could it be that they're just looking for contact with each other? The barren underwater landscape offers hardly any hiding places, with a few exceptions. Gobies make their home among the bottles and stones. Since the turn of the millennium, these groundfish have been migrating via canals from the Black Sea to the Rhine. They have hardly any natural enemies in their new home, but they do have a huge appetite. The immigrant gobies are reproducing at an explosive rate. They're already on the menu of the catfish, but whether that will be enough to limit their proliferation remains to be seen. The straightening of the Rhine began in 1817. Towns and agricultural land developed where the river once formed meanders. Since the beginning of the 20th century, the Rhine has been navigable for large ships. Many of its lateral branches were drained. Others were cut off from the Rhine by embankments. Only in the few remaining branches of the Rhine can we detect what it must have been like at one time in the whole of the Upper Rhine Valley. An intertwined labyrinth of water and land. An underwater jungle, hunting grounds for waterfowl and fish. Here too we find groundwater springs, which ensure that the cut-off branches of the Rhine don't dry out. These river branches provide underwater paradises, full of hiding places and spawning grounds. More than 50 different species of fish live here. Where a lot of water flows through the river branches, strange creatures gather to breed. At first sight, brook lampreys look like small eels, but instead of jaws, they have circular suction mouths. The females use them to clear spawning pits. Mating is the climax of lampreys' lives, and also their culmination. Shortly afterwards, they die. Very few of the Rhine's former branches are in such good condition as these idyllic lamprey spawning grounds. Despite their groundwater springs, many branches of the Rhine are slowly dying. Over the years, ever new generations of algae develop and decay. Leaves fall into the groundwater and decompose, leaving behind a thick sludge which builds up on the bottom and blocks the vital freshwater springs. Contact with the groundwater flow is broken. In the stagnant water, the oxygen content falls. The survivors are undemanding tench, common carp, and common bream. In some places, there are still a lot of larger fish to be found. But the former biodiversity is lost. For years now, conservationists have been trying to halt the slow decline of the former Rhine branches. They bring in heavy equipment to clear new paths for nature. Excavators create openings in the embankments of the Rhine. At the next high water mark, the river can flow through again. Channels conduct the river water deep into the forests, which have long been cut off from the river. The river water flushes the sludge away from the bottom, which opens up the groundwater springs again. This restores a habitat that's dependent on the ebb and flow of the water, the alluvial forest. sponges establish themselves on roots projecting into the water, and fish find cover again. Upstairs, the tree trunk attracts sunbathers. The water and the forest revive each other. The many plants in the alluvial forest filter and purify the water. For some inhabitants, this idyll is not without its dangers. Kingfishers use branches hanging over the water as hunting hides. A fat catch like this is bound to impress his mate. Some especially sunny spots attract animals that used to be very common along the Rhine. Well into the 19th century, European pond turtles were caught in their thousands and ended up as turtle soup. The straightening of the Rhine did the rest. The species died out along the Rhine. Biologists have been breeding the creatures for the last 25 years in order to re-establish them here. When they're 5 years old, they're released into the former Rhine branches. They're then big enough and safe from herons and storks. Whether or not their efforts will bear fruit and the pond turtles will reproduce on their own remains to be seen. The water and wealth of plant life attract winged beauties. Dragonflies need healthy water to reproduce. Most varieties mate near the water itself. Some females simply shed their eggs in flight. Others attach them to water plants, which just means getting their abdomen a little bit wet. A pair of common blue damselflies in tandem flight go looking for a place to lay their eggs. Then something remarkable happens. The female crawls down a stalk underwater and threatens to take the male down with her. At the very last second, the male lets go. The female steadfastly continues underwater, up to 2 meters deep. Here it drills its eggs into the stem of the plant. It has a thin film of air around its body, which acts like gills, enabling the damselfly to extract oxygen from the water. The egg-laying process can last up to an hour and a half. This far beneath the surface, the eggs won't dry out, even when the water level in the Rhine branch drops. Finally, the female simply lets go. But the surface tension prevents the female from flying away. making her easy prey for the predatory pond skaters. But now male damselflies come to the female's defense. But that's not the end of the airborne rescue operation. A male damselfly tries to pull the female out of the water, not totally selflessly. He wants to mate with the damsel. But he's not alone in that. He has to fight off a whole swarm of competitors. The display of strength succeeds, and the female is rescued. Without the all-important groundwater, none of the stories of the dragonflies, the great crested grebes, or the pike in the Upper Rhine Valley would take place. It's not enough just to protect this vital natural treasure when it comes to the surface. The Rhine branches, gravel pits and thunderholes are, after all, only the visible parts of the groundwater that flows beneath our feet.